Hello and welcome to another live stream. So let me know what the audio is like. So before I get started, we'll just check that the audio is working okay. So yes, hello and thank you for joining me. So the plan is just to go through my photos from the last few live streams. So I've got 3 lots of photos to get through. So as soon as I can confirm that all our audio is okay, we'll get going pretty much straight away. Because yeah, got lots of photos to go through. So if there's anyone in the chat, just let me know that the audio is working fine, and then we'll get stuck into it. So yes, we've got 150.
Sounds horrible.
That sounds bad. All right, it doesn't sound good. Let me just have a quick play around.
It's all distorted.
Okay, let me just turn that down a bit. Okay, let's just get this audio sorted for starters. So does that sound any better or is that just as bad? I'm just going to do a few little audio tweaks here. And then we'll get going. If this doesn't work, I'll plug in my headphones because I know they work a lot better. I did mess around with my audio settings, so let me just have a quick look at what we've got going on here. I'll turn that down a bit. Okay, what's the audio like now? Still no good?
I'll wait for it to update. The first change.
Okay, so I've just turned the audio down a little bit, so hopefully it's not as distorted this time. So we'll get going as soon as I confirm these audio issues. I'm just going to play around with a few different things, and yeah, if it's not great, then we will just simply swap our microphone. Yes, I tried doing a few things a while ago, so all right, how's that? Does that sound any better now, or is it still the same as it was before? So I'm just going to keep talking. Give it a few seconds to catch up.
It's a tiny bit better, but it's still pretty shit.
Okay, so it's still crackly, still distorted. All right. Okay, it might be too loud. I'm just going to turn it down a bit. Let's turn the volume down. Just bear with me while I get these. Yeah, I put a few filters on the other day, which I might just get rid of them and go back to my default settings. Let's just reset everything to default quickly. Yes, I did test this not long ago and it was all fine. But yeah, look, you know, the joys of live streaming, trying to get all these audio issues sorted. All right, how's that? Does that sound a little bit better now? So let me know what that's like. If that's still no good, I will just switch over to the headphones. But yeah, I did a test the other day and everything was okay. G'day, Leslie, how are you? Sounds a bit tinny, but better. All right, tinny. I don't want tinny because we had tinny in one of the other streams and yeah, it wasn't great. So how's it sounding now? Does that sound any better now? It does sound better? Okay, good.
Tiny bit tinny, but it's better.
All right. Okay, bear with me. I am just going to unplug this mic and try again. All right, how's that? I've just unplugged the mic, replugged it in, and let's see what that sounds like. So let me just quickly get this photo ready. Okay, so yeah, well, let's just get our audio sorted before us get going. So how are we sounding now? That should be better. I've basically reset everything back to defaults, which is what I normally run, I think. Sounds better now? Okay, good. All right, just got the all clear, so it is sounding better. So yeah, so like I said, I've got lots of photos to go through. All up from the 3 live sessions that I did, we've ended up with 150 photos. So the first one, look, we're going to go through them pretty quickly because I don't want to spend too long on each one. So now that I know the audio is better, let me just get everything here sorted so I can see what's going on. So g'day Leslie, how are you? I didn't go back out tonight. I saw lots of cloud in the sky, so I didn't bother going tonight. So we will get this comet eventually. Okay, so yeah, this was the first night, and look, I was a bit disappointed with this night, to tell the truth, because we had a pretty epic sky going on, but it was one of those nights I just couldn't find a foreground that was looking anywhere near interesting. And as I've mentioned before in the live stream, sometimes that happens. Sometimes things don't line up. Okay, so these were a few shots that I took when I first got there, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to apply my Seascape preset. So all I'm really doing is bringing down my highlights and my whites, lifting my shadows and my blacks, just so I can get a better look at what I'm dealing with. And I'm just going to sync that to all of my settings, to all of my photos. Okay, so that's just going to give me a better look at what I'm dealing with. Okay, and I've already had a quick look at these, and yeah, to tell the truth, none of them are great. It was one of those, yeah, I had no foreground to work with. There was a couple of people fishing down on the rocks on this point, which is where I really wanted to be. Because down there you get a nice cleaner shot of the sunset. And there's a lot more to work with when the sun's kind of where it is. But we made do with what we had, and yeah, look, I played around with a few compositions, and as you'll remember from the live stream, there were a few that I kept saying this just isn't working, and it was all about the sky. But even though we've got the sky, sometimes you just do need to have a bit of foreground to make the shot look nice. Okay, so this one was probably the pick of the bunch from the first lot. So what we'll do a quick edit on this. Okay, so it's an okay photo. So again, I don't want to spend too long on it. So that's just my basic starting point. So this one, I will probably add a bit of contrast and also warm it up. It just feels a little bit too cool. So I'm just going to warm it up a little bit. Now, the way I like to do this is I always work on my foreground first. So I can see my sky's perfect, happy where the sky is. So rather than brighten up my foreground with a local adjustment, what I do is I just brighten up the foreground with my exposure and get it to roughly where I want it. So I can see I'm bringing it up by about a stop. Okay, so now that I've brought my foreground up by about a stop, to get my sky back to where it was, I'm going to reduce my sky by about a stop. So I'm just going to do a linear gradient, bring my exposure back down by about one stop. Okay, and then that takes us back to where we originally were with our sky, but we've just lightened up the foreground a little bit. So that's the way I do it. I just find that's the easiest way for me to do it. I know a lot of people do just prefer to brighten up their foreground. But yeah, it's just, and that's a good thing with Lightroom. You find what works for you and stick with it. Okay, so this one, what we're going to do with this, I'm going to do a bit of split toning. So I haven't touched on split toning in any of these streams yet. So I will give it a quick split tone. Just to show you what we can do, because it's one of those images where it's not great. Like there's too much down here in the bottom left-hand corner, which I just don't like. There's not much happening over to the right. Again, composition, we've got our leading line heading out towards the sunset, but there's not a lot. It's just messy. Okay, so I'm not going to do a lot with this one. What we will do though, let's add some drama to the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another filter. I'm going to create a new mask. I'm going to do another linear gradient, but this time I'm just going to select the top part of the sky. And a little tip, if you hold the shift key while you drag your filter down or your gradient, it'll keep a nice straight line. Okay, so then rather than trying to work out where it should be, if you just hold your shift button, it will go straight and you can't move it. Okay. So now that I've shifted that, and all I want is the top part. I don't really want it to affect that rain in the distance. I just want it to affect the top part. I'm going to bring it down to about there. Now, a quick and easy way to add some drama to the sky and bring out all that cloud is if we just add a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity, but the big one's this dehaze. If we start to add some dehaze, look what that does. And what I'm going to overcook it. So again, this isn't full workflow. This is just kind of to give you some ideas of what you can do to get some more detail out of your clouds. Okay, so if I just turn that eyeball off, so that's before, and then that's after. Okay, so just with our texture, our clarity, and our dehaze, if we bump all of them up, adds a lot more drama to that sky. Okay, so I kind of like where that is for now. What I want to do is make a bit more of a golden glow along the horizon. So I'm going to create another mask, and this time I'm going to use a radial gradient, and we're just going to select, just stretch it right out. And this time we're just going to bring up our temperature. So that's just going to add a bit more color to our horizon. Okay, and that's about it. Okay, so that's getting it to a point where I'm kind of happy with it. Again, not the best shot, so I'm not going to spend too long on it. But what we'll do some split toning. So I haven't really touched on this one before. So if we come down to our color grading tool, okay, and you'll see these three circles appear. So what we've got is our midtones, we've got our shadows, and we've got our highlights. And just by adjusting all of these, they will affect each one. So for example, if I grab my midtones, and I'm going to take it right to the edge, and if I just move this around, we're just changing the color of all our midtones. Okay, so for this example, I might get our midtones kind of, you just go around and find what you like. Okay, there's no right and wrong way of doing it. You do what you like. Okay, I kind of like the blue tone to it. And then I'm going to grab my shadows and do the same thing. Click it right out to the edge. Okay, and then just going to spin my shadows around. And I do like that dark purpley, almost the dark blue. So that's not bad. And our highlights, okay, so as you can see with the highlights, it's just touching that sky, and I'm going to leave that in the orange. Okay, so it doesn't look great now, but what we can do, if we hold the shift button and we click on one of these, it'll do a line. So now I can't move my circle around, but what I can do is start to dial back what I've done. Okay, so rather than have it really blue, I'm just going to add a little bit of blue to my midtones, a little bit of blue to my shadows. And the highlights, I can probably leave them about halfway. Okay, so that's how quick and easy it is to do a color grade. Okay, so then if we have a look at our before and after, so there's where we started, and that's where we're at. So as you can see, it's kind of added a blue and orange split tone to it. So split tone, you're creating two color tones. So we've got a blue and an orange. Okay, so yeah, just with that color grading tool, all you do is you select where you want those colors. Okay, so you might want to have, you know, nice warm midtones, nice warm shadows, and maybe some yellow highlights. Okay, and then again, you just hold the shift key, and then you can just slide this backwards and forwards back to where you want it. Okay, so yeah, knock yourself out with that, and it can you can come up with some pretty cool effects. Okay. So again, no right way, no wrong way, but yeah, just thought I'd show you some split toning just for something different. So we'll leave that one again. It's not a great photo. Like even the raw file, yeah, it's one of those ones. It's okay, but it's not great. So I sort of just want to get through these pretty quickly. Now I did say I was going to show you all my raw files, so I'll just quickly go through them. Okay, and as you can see, again, the foreground's just not working. Okay, there's not a lot going on. It was one of those nights again. I think I was too worried about my audio issues and not really concentrating on what I was doing. So this one's okay. Okay, this one's okay. And this one, I think this was the pick of the bunch. Okay, so this one was my pick of the bunch. Some nice water movement. Yeah, that rain on the horizon, I do like that. A thing that really annoys me with this shot is this great big hole in the sky. Okay, so that to me is very distracting. So as a general rule, especially with landscape photography, your eye will always draw to the brightest part of an image. Okay, so looking at this, my eye is going straight up here. So what we're going to do, we're going to deal with that and just tone it down a bit so it's not quite so bright. We're actually going to bring some color into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get a base starting point. So this one, my foreground's kind of okay where it is. I don't want it to be too much brighter. All I'm going to do is bring down my sky. So I'm going to grab a linear gradient. Just going to grab, and again, hold my shift key. So that'll give me a nice straight gradient. Bring down that sky a little bit. Probably only needs to come down about there. Again, the overall, everything just looks a bit blue. So I'm just going to warm up the image a bit. Okay, so somewhere around about there is starting to look a little bit nicer. Now what I want to do is deal with that sky. Okay, now this is where we're going to do an exposure blend, but all we're going to do is just blend that part of the sky. Okay, and now I just might add a bit of contrast to it. Okay, so somewhere around about there for starters. You know what? I'm just going to, let's add some more texture to that sky. So again, I'm just going to grab another filter, but this time I'm just going to bring up the dehaze a little bit, just to get some drama into those clouds and even a bit of clarity. Okay, so that'll just add some, make the clouds a bit more, they'll stand out more. Okay, so if we have a look at our before and after now, that's where we started and that's where we're at. So already just taking it away from that flat raw file and just adding a bit of drama, a bit of color, a bit of contrast. Okay, but still this little bit in the middle is really annoying to me. I don't like it. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this into Photoshop. So if we just right click on our thumbnail, edit in Photoshop. Okay, so how's the sound? Is the sound holding up? Does everything sound okay? It's not too tinny or crackly or anything. Hopefully the sound's good. Because yeah, I've had issues with the sound once before, and yeah, if it keeps doing what it's doing, I might just go back to my headphones. All right, so now we've got this image opened in Photoshop. Now, this is the way I like to do it. I know a lot of people like to use what's called bring it in as a smart object, so you can just re-edit your raw file. But I find it's almost just as quick just to go back to Lightroom and actually use your original raw file rather than bringing two raw files into Photoshop. Just go back to Lightroom, and what we're going to do is we're going to deal with this part. Okay, and the way, all I'm doing is looking at this part of the sky, and what I want to do is bring some blue back. I'm going to bring so see already we're starting to get some more color back. Okay, I've got a dirty big dust spot there, which we'll deal with later. Okay, so that's all I want. I want to bring in that part of the blue into my other image. So what I'm going to do is go edit in Photoshop. Okay, and now as you can see, very dark image, but what we're going to do a quick exposure blend. And anyone who has seen my other videos on exposure blending, the easiest and best way to exposure blend, it's all there is to it. Okay, and I'm going to put a little spin on that same way that I normally do my exposure blends. So I've got my brighter layer on top. I'm going to create a layer mask. Click on the thumbnail for that top one, go to my channels, hold Control and select RGB, and that's just going to select the brightest parts of the image. Okay, so now I know just the brightest parts are selected. What I'm going to do is zoom in on the sky because that's all I want to deal with. I'm going to click back on my layer mask. I'm going to grab a brush, and I want a black brush because I want to black out that sky to reveal what's underneath. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm using a black brush to black out the bits that I don't want. But what I'm going to do is turn my opacity right down. So this is the opacity of your brush, up sort of top left corner-ish. And we'll turn it down to about 20%. And what we're going to do is just slowly start to paint in. Now, let me just change my brush. I'm going to turn my hardness down to 0. That'll give me a nice soft brush. And I'm just going to paint those extra bright bits. And as you can see, it's just starting to bring some blue. Yeah, I've sort of gone over a bit there, but yeah, that's because I had the hard brush, but that's fine. And even a little bit over here, we'll bring some blue back into the sky there. Okay, so I'll overdo it just for the sake of this video. I am going to overdo it just so you can sort of see what I'm doing. Okay, now if I go back to normal. Okay, so there's our original with that really bright blob in the sky. And then just by blending in some blue, okay, we've started to get that color back. Okay, now you will see a bit of a circle around there. That's just because I had the wrong brush on. But at any time, if we just go back to that layer mask, and if I go back to my brush and grab a white brush, turn that up to 100%, and I'll just kind of go around the edges a little bit just to tidy it up. Okay, so then it's just affecting the sky. Okay, and then if that's too much, all we need to do is just dial it down a bit. Okay, so that's with no adjustment. And then we're just going to blend a little bit of blue back into that sky just to take the sting out of it a little. Okay, so then we're going from there to there. But just getting some blue. And then it just sort of, it's not quite in your face like, to me, that's just, it's bright and distracting. We've got no color in the sky. It's just kind of white and washed out. So we're just going to bring a little bit of blue back into that sky. Okay. So that's another way of using that exposure blending technique that I've sort of showed in my other videos. But yeah, doing it more refined. So having a brush opacity lighter and just painting in the little bits that we want. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Like, again, it's not a great image. It's okay. If anything, I'd probably brighten up the water a little bit. So if we just press Control and I, and that will invert that mask that I just did. And then again, this time with a white brush, we're just going to paint in some of that whitewash. This is my way of dodging and burning. These dodge and burn tools that we've got in Photoshop, they're very outdated. I don't even know why they bother leaving them in there, to tell the truth. The old dodge and burn tools. There's so many better ways of dodging and burning. Okay, then if we just hit save. Again, I'm not going to spend too long because these images, they're just okay. I just want to sort of show you a few techniques that we can do. Actually, let me just layer flatten that image and then hit save. And if we go back and go back into Lightroom, I'll show you where we started. Let's just reset that back to where it was. Okay, so that's where we started, and that's where we've taken it. So as you can see, we've just done a quick color balance adjustment and taken the sting out of that sky. So where we've got a completely washed out sky, we've just blended some color back into it, added a bit of contrast. Okay, so again, it's not a great image, so I don't want to spend too long on that one. And again, like a lot of these images, they're just okay. I was a bit disappointed, to tell the truth, that I just couldn't get a foreground that I was really happy with. Actually, one thing, let me do it. I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it. What we're going to do is I'll show you what I mean by not a very good composition. So mainly off to the right-hand side, there's just nothing happening there. Okay, so for example, let's just say, and this is where this tool can actually be good as a compositional tool, just to give you an idea of how to find a composition that works. Okay, so this area over here, to me, that's very plain and there's nothing there. But could you imagine if we had some distant mountains? On a rocky beach. And hit generate. Okay, so this is what I mean by this composition doesn't work. Just all of this right-hand side, it's very unbalanced. We've got all this action over to the left, got all this action up here in the sky, but over to the right is just plain and boring. So this is where we can just use some AI and just add in whatever we want. Okay, so look at that. Like, now the image is more balanced because we've got all of this. Now, I'm not saying use AI. I'm just sort of giving you as an example. When you compose a shot, try and balance your image. Okay, so in this case, I had no choice because of where I was. As I mentioned, there was people in my spot. They took my spot, so I kind of had to work with what I had. But yeah, normally I would look for something to fill my frame, like have interest everywhere, rather than have sort of a bit of nothing off to your side. Okay, so yeah, look, that's AI. That's, you know, it's good. I don't like it, but I thought I'd just quickly show you while I'm here. Okay, so, and then eventually I change into a vertical composition. And again, these just didn't work. There was, you know, the rocks are kind of doing nothing. And we sort of started to lose a bit of that color in the sky. But again, to me, they just don't work. Okay, there's just nothing about these images that I like. Like the sky's cool. There's plenty going on in the sky. You know, this one, if anything, I'd probably crop it in to get rid of all this nothingness down in the right bottom left. But yeah, it just doesn't really work. And you know, that happens. Sometimes you go out and you're going to have an epic sky and things are going off and you're just not going to get what you want. Okay, so, and then this was the plan. The plan was to get this waterfall. Once those people took my spot, I went over to this little rock pool because I know this rock pool is usually good. and just happened to be lucky that we had some nice big clouds on the horizon and some rain. Now this, you might look at that and think it's very flat. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick edit on this. The first thing I'm going to do is warm it up. It just feels a bit too cool. Okay, so this is one thing with white balance. It's sort of personal preference. We're going to crop it in a little bit because I think there's a bit too much foreground. Okay, and now our sky. So similar to what I did before, what I'm going to do is grab a linear gradient. I'm just going to bring it down again. If I hold my shift key, that'll give me a nice straight gradient. A big soft gradient always works better. Okay, we'll bring our exposure down a little bit. But the real magic is these, our texture, our clarity, and watch what happens with the dehaze. Let's crank up the dehaze and now look at those clouds. Okay, so that dehaze button, yeah, don't go overboard. I tend not to go too far. It'll look fine on YouTube because YouTube compression sort of, you lose a bit. But yeah, those three effect sliders, the texture, the clarity, and the dehaze, if you've got some nice stormy clouds, they are a good way of bringing out all that detail in your clouds. Okay, and if anything, probably just warm it up. That's a bit too much. So somewhere about there. Okay, again, I'm not going to spend too long on it because it's another one of those images. It's okay, but it's not great. Yeah, like I said before, it was just one of those nights where I couldn't get what I wanted. And then we've got all these other images that are very similar. Okay, so again, I was just trying to get that water flowing in over the rocks. And I think, look, I've got a few that were okay. So this one I kind of like as well. We've got some nice movement rushing into the pool. So if we go back to this one, and if we just hold shift and sync it right up to the end, just hit sync, check all, synchronize, then we're going to have a better look at what we're dealing with. Okay, so if we go back to this image, for example, okay, so that's starting to look better. So there's our before, very flat, and just with a few adjustments in Lightroom, just especially that cloud, okay, big stormy clouds, just crank up your texture and your clarity and all of that, okay, brings in a lot of detail. Okay, so again, like, yeah, to me, these images, they weren't great. They're okay. They weren't great. And then again, we've got some more, again, you know, they just didn't do it for me. Okay, foreground a bit too messy in that one. Okay, same here. Foreground was just a bit too messy. It's sort of, there's a lot of nothing, if that makes sense. And then eventually I get down closer to where I wanted to be. Now this is what I call a better composition. So now we've got some rocks sort of down this bottom right-hand corner pointing towards our sunset. We've got some on the bottom left-hand corner. Again, everything's kind of pointing towards our sunset. So that's a much better composition as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and again, we don't need to do too much to this one. It's kind of, it's okay where it is. You know, warming up. Yeah, because it's blue hour, I do like to have that slightly cooler look to it. Okay, again, it's not a great image. It's okay. And they're all kind of, they're similar. I did move around in the end. And then that one, I kind of had a similar issue to what I had before, where there's just sort of nothing over to the right. Okay, and the fact that I can't get my horizon straight to save my life, that's a bit better. Okay, and again, because it's blue hour, I don't mind the blue tint to it. Okay, if anything, we could probably warm it up just a bit. It's probably a bit too blue. Add some magenta. Okay, so again, it's an okay shot, but yeah, to me, they're not great. They're just okay. So yeah, I don't even know why I put 5-star. I think I was going to do something to that. Anyway, that was the first day. So I was a bit disappointed with these photos, to tell the truth. But, you know, I'm going to show you everything. I'm going to show you that it doesn't always work. Okay, sometimes we can go out there and things don't work. Now, this night, for example, this was one of the nights where I didn't think we were going to get much. I was out, if you remember in the live stream, I was out on all these rocks. It was very messy, but I just found this one stack of rocks that were kind of worked as my leading line. And again, if I just apply my Seascape preset, the sky in this just worked. Like the light is such a big thing in photography. When you've got nice light and you've got nice color, it's hard to take a bad photo. Okay, where on this night, like, yes, we had good color, but just something about it, yeah, just didn't sort of work for me. Where this one, and again, it's probably just personal preference. It's probably people thinking they like the first lot, where to me, this is much nicer. Okay, that's the first shot of the night. And again, don't really need to do much. This is one of those nights where, you know, a very basic composition, just a big solid leading line, a nice sunset, and a long exposure. Okay, long exposures, they do help your image. Okay, there's no doubt about it. A nice long exposure does make your image look nice. Again, horizon, we'll sort that out. So that one, don't need to do too much to it. If anything, probably just warm it up. Okay, just warm it up a little. I do like the blue tones. Okay, and then if we just sync that same setting to all of them, as you'll see, they're all kind of similar. I did deliberately underexposed a few just to preserve that detail in the sky. But yeah, all kind of similar. I was going to blend them together, but there's no point. Okay, that first image, I don't need to blend. I like where that is. If anything, we'll just kind of bring down the sky just a tiny bit. So let's just bring down the sky a tiny bit, bring a little bit of color back into it. Yeah, don't need to do a lot with that. Pretty happy where it was. Okay, so yeah, this night, it was just, yeah, it was one of those nights. A nice sunset does help. Okay, nice sunset, strong foreground. This was an example of where I said I was deliberately overexposing. So again, like, it was more for the water. Okay, so I knew that I was going to blow out the sky, and that was kind of the purpose of it, was to blow out that sky, because then that just, it gives the illusion that the water's even smoother. Okay, so even if I just bring my exposure back a little bit, let's just sync those settings to these two. Okay, by slightly overexposing, it gives it that silky smooth water effect. Okay, and then, you know, then we can just blend in the sky that we want. Okay, which I'm not going to do. I've got some other photos I want to get to that are a bit nicer. I just want to sort of get through these quick. This one I didn't mind. This actually, it did come out okay. So, but again, like, we can just work off that one exposure. Like, everything's kind of within, you know, we haven't completely lost all our darks, but I don't mind if we do, you know, when you've got a subject like this, they're black rocks. So I don't mind having a bit of black in them. I don't care that I've underexposed those rocks, because it was dark. It was supposed to be dark. Okay, if anything, I might just warm it up a bit. Again, contrast is always good. Bring down the sky a little bit. So you'll probably see that I do very similar edits to most of my images. Eventually, yeah, look, I'm going to go out and shoot with a purpose of doing either a HDR or multiple exposures. But yeah, this night, it was more about just, you know, doing what I enjoy doing. Okay. And yeah, again, don't need to do a lot to that image. If anything, I might actually, you know, this is one of the cases where I will take my blacks down, okay, because I do want those rocks to be nice and black. Maybe bring up the whites just to add some contrast. Okay, if we look at our before and after, there's the before and there's the after. Okay, and probably a bit too warm. I do like that cooler look. I do like my blues. Okay, and then next image, yeah, very similar again. You know what, let's just let's put that preset on the rest of these and sync them up. So these ones, you know, when you get shots like this, you don't need to exposure blend. We've caught everything. If I go back to my default, okay, so as you can see, everything's there in one shot. We don't need to exposure blend. And that's just from watching our histogram on the night. Okay, keep an eye on your histogram, as long as you're not sort of either too far left or too far right. I always do prefer to be slightly underexposed, so I retain all that detail in my sky. But yeah, as you can see, you can bring it all back, okay, just with a little bit of shadow and lift the blacks a little bit. You get that back pretty easily. So yeah, look, this image is, it's okay as well. Again, probably all I really need to do is bring down the sky a little bit. Maybe just warm up the sky a little bit, bring it down just to sort of even out the exposure. Okay, if anything, if I was to pick on this image at all, this bottom right hand corner, there's not a lot happening down there. So yeah, composition wise, I think it worked better in a landscape landscape rather than portrait mode. Okay, so these images, I rather like them. They're nice. They're nice. They're not the best I've ever done, but they're nice. Okay, and then eventually we start to get into the blue hour, and then we start to get, the whole purpose of this stream was the long exposure. Okay, I had my filters on the entire night to get these long exposures because they do give a really nice effect. Okay, so we'll just quickly go through some of these, and then as we head into that blue hour, this cloud kind of killed a bit of our color. You can sort of see that orange and pink on the horizon. So if that cloud wasn't there, if it had broken up a little bit, that could have been pretty epic. Okay, but as it is, like they're nice shots. They're not terrible, and they're not great. Okay, so yeah, long exposures, good fun to do. And I know a few people have been asking for a long exposure class, and I am planning on one very soon. So hopefully we'll have a nice long exposure class coming up soon. I think a few of you will be happy with that. I know Leslie will. She's been asking for a long time for a long exposure. So, and now I've got some filters that'll fit your lens. We should be right. So yeah, let me know what the audio's like. Hopefully it's still running okay. Hopefully you can still hear me and I'm not just talking to myself. And yeah, that's about it for those ones. So again, this night, we took 28 photos, all very similar. Okay, so if you remember from the live stream, I did walk around a little bit, and there wasn't a lot going on. This was my composition. This was all I had to work with. So yeah, I worked with it, and as you can see, got some pretty cool shots. I don't mind them. G'day Pam, how are you? Yes, please. Okay, so yeah, long exposure class. Sort of, yeah, trying to get the tides lined up where I don't have to have you guys walking across all these rocks, because I don't want to be taking people out where I go. It does get pretty slippery, so I'm kind of waiting for those right tides so we can get some rocks that are close to the beach. And we do have some nice big high tides sort of early this week. But yeah, we'll get our timing. We'll get our timing soon. All right, so that's about it for these ones. Again, like these are nice. They're just nice. They're not, not the best shots I've ever taken, but they're just nice. Okay, and it was good to get out and do some long exposures. Sound is good. Okay, good. All right, and then finally we get to our storm. So look, I was disappointed we didn't get lightning, but I'm extremely happy with some of these shots towards the end. So we'll get to them very soon. Yeah, I was very happy with the light. If you've ever gone out and shot a lightning storm, you really do get some nice light, especially when there's lightning in the distance and the whole sky lights up. You'll get oranges and purples and greens. You'll get all these really weird colors. And as you'll see, once we get down further, I love my color, I do. And this was the start of the night. Okay, so speaking of color, we have absolutely no color in these first few. So again, just applying my preset. This preset, it's my starting point. This is what I call my starting point, and all it does is just, it shows me what I'm dealing with. Okay, so rather than dealing with a completely flat file, I'm doing a lens correction, I'm doing a little bit of sharpening, but more importantly, bringing down the highlights and lifting my shadows, just so I can sort of see what's going on. Okay, so as you can see, yeah, this was waiting for the storms. Not a lot going on. Okay, there's a little bit up there in the cloud. The clouds were okay. They weren't as epic as I was hoping. And again, like if you want to really bring out detail in that sky, add some texture, add some clarity, and add some dehaze, and look what that does. Okay, so going from there, your very flat raw file, and just with those three sliders alone, getting all that texture in the sky. So now, you want dark, moody, grungy type skies. Works really well when you've got storms. Those three sliders there, your texture, your clarity, and your dehaze, bump them up, and it's going to bring out all that detail in the sky. It's also going to bring out all the detail in your dust spots, and my sensor is absolutely horrible, which I will get around to that. Leslie, the one on Instagram is brilliant. The one, oh yes, we'll get to that soon. That I was happy with that one. And that's what I meant with the light. The light was just, yeah, I was kind of happy that I didn't get lightning, because if I had have got lightning, it could have ruined the shot. Because I'll quickly show you. I'll quickly show you. I did go out afterwards, after the live stream in the storm, and I did get some lightning. And I'll show you what happens when you get lightning. Okay, so this was the first one. We've got a little bit over there in the distance. I'll just quickly, and again, like, look how dark everything is. So when you get lightning strikes, everything gets super bright. Okay, so look at that, almost looks blown out, super dark. But if we just apply our preset, and again, if we just kind of lift that a little bit, and add all these textures and grunginess, okay, sort out that magenta in the sky. Okay, like you get some really cool textures in the sky, but that lightning strike, very easy to overexpose. Okay, so you'll find that when we get back to these images, a lot of them are underexposed, and deliberately underexposed in the hope that we were going to get some lightning and that was going to light up everything. So it's a little bit of a tip. If you're going to do lightning, work on underexposing, because as soon as you get a bolt of lightning, it's going to just completely blow out everything. Okay, so yeah, look, there's the first image. Again, these were all just waiting and hoping for some lightning, which it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So I'm going to go through these quickly. These were some panos. So let me just, the crop tools, let me just give that a, I've gone through and I've just quickly stitched together. That's about all I've done at this stage, was stitch a few of these together. And again, like they're not great. If we sort of add some texture and some clarity and some dehaze, we can sort of get a little bit, maybe darken it down and add some contrast, get that sort of moody look. Okay, again, like they're okay, but they're not great. Okay, they weren't the big storm clouds I was hoping for. You can kind of see a little bit over on the horizon of what I wanted. But yeah, the ones up above, yeah, a little bit of and that's what I mean. Like when it's stormy, you get all sorts of color. We've got some purples and blues and all sorts of things going on. Okay, and again, a lot of these have come out a bit blue. I can't remember what I had my camera on. Yeah, it's on auto. It's on auto. Might have been on daylight. But yeah, sometimes the camera can get confused when there's absolutely no color in the sky at all. It's just going to work on a gray. So I find that these ones, they probably do need to be warmed up a little bit. Okay, but again, like these ones aren't great. So I'm going to skip over these. I took a heap. There's a heap in there that are just like panoramas and just trying to get some of that texture in the sky. And again, with these, if I was going to go through them, that's pretty much what I'm doing, adding some dehaze. Let me just stretch out my pano again. We'll unlock that. I'll just quickly go through these because, yeah, like I said, they're not great. I was hoping for lightning, didn't get it, but very happy with what you're about to see soon. And yeah, white balance. White balance can be very touchy of a nighttime. So yeah, look, you know, these images aren't great. So like I said, I'm just going to quickly go through them. And we get to our first one where we actually got some lightning. And just to give you an idea of how far away that lightning was, there it is on the horizon. That's how far away it was. It didn't come in. But you got to be there. You got to be there and hope for it. You know, it was good that it wasn't on top of us, but yeah, it was just a bit too far away. So, and again, like the clouds, they weren't those big, dramatic, puffy, stormy clouds that I was hoping for. So like even if we try to dehaze these, see how they're just soft. Okay, they're not the big storm clouds that I was hoping for. Okay, so again, these images, yeah, they're okay, but they're not great. Then this was one where we did get some bolts. Okay, so we got 2 bolts under my tree, which, you know, I wanted these bolts above my tree, not under the tree, but again, we're starting to get some color now. Okay, got a little bit of orange over here. starting, as it got darker, that's when the colour started to creep in. Anyway, enough showing off these images. I know I said that I was going to show you all my raw files. And what I'm going to do, so these are ones that are all slightly darker. As the night was getting on, we were just kind of hoping for some lightning. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bump up and just sync that to all of these. This is where things start to get better. Okay, so now we're starting to get some colour. So this is, you can see all that on the horizon was lightning. So whenever the lightning strikes, so there's no lightning at all. And you'll see it, there's some there. You can see a tiny little bit. And that's when you start to get your colour. As the lightning in the sky starts to go off, we start to get some colour. Okay, I think it just bumped up the ISO here. So all of these, yeah, look, these are not bad. These are not bad images. You know, even though we don't have colour, well, like if we sort out our white balance, get the white balance kind of where we want it, add a little bit of, you know, like don't need to do a lot. We've got some really nice colour in the sky, good composition, probably a bit too much foreground if anything. Yeah, don't need to do a lot with them. Like this is, it was just good light. There's lightning. You can kind of see off in the distance. There's lightning going on off everywhere. Okay, so it's giving us some really nice light. So I'm just going to sync those settings to all of them. And then what we'll do, I'm going to work on one. I'll just try and work out which one I want to work. I think it was the last couple. So all of these are nice. Like I like all of them. Okay, they're all pretty good. And again, I don't need to, I think that was one of the ones I put on Instagram. That was one of the ones I put on Instagram. You know, you can see the lightning going off behind the clouds and lighting things up. But the ones I really like were these last few. Okay, again, the white balance is just a bit off. It was this last one. So let's just cool that back down, get our white balance kind of, doesn't need to be that bright either. Okay, so this one I kind of like. This one I did like. Okay, this is the one that had some really nice purple. So what I'm going to do is spend a bit of time on this one image because this was probably, yeah, it's hard to choose. Like there's lots in here that I like, but there was just something about that last one, and in particular these two, because we had the there was a couple of cars on the horizon, and you can see their headlights shining up here. Okay, so I kind of like that we've got those headlights there. So what we're going to do a bit of an exposure blend, and I'm going to work on these two images. So look, I'd prefer to do most of my editing in Photoshop rather than Lightroom. So I use Lightroom for my first very basic adjustment, get it sort of to a starting point, and then I do most of my editing. Sort of, I switch back between Lightroom and Photoshop. So, you know, that's my starting point for these two. Okay, so what I'm going to do is bring both of these into Photoshop. And then we're going to start playing with them in there. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's in the chat at the moment. Yeah, look, it was, you know, I've got 3 streams to catch up on, and yeah, from, you know, the first one, I just wasn't really happy with any of those shots. This is the one, I was happy with this. And you watch what we can do with this. Actually, you know what, I'm just going to close these down because this is another thing that I did do. We were up to ISO 800 at this stage. So ISO 800, we were underexposed. So by increasing our exposure, we're going to add noise, and shooting it like ISO 800 on a full frame camera isn't, you know, anything out of control. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my detail, and I'm going to denoise both of these. Denoise in Lightroom now it's brilliant. It really is good. Okay, and I find that, you know, depending on how noisy your image is, I never go over 50. Okay, so, you know, anywhere sort of between 25 to 50 is a good place to start. Okay, these images aren't super noisy, so probably around about that 40. And then we're just going to enhance those two images. And that's just going to clean them up. It's going to remove noise. I don't know if you're going to see it well, but there is a lot of hot spots as well. Okay, it's going to be hard to see, but yeah, up here in Hervey Bay, the nighttime temperatures are still pretty warm, so you get a lot of hot spots on your sensor. Okay, or hot pixels. And we'll deal with them as well once we go into Photoshop. I'll show you how you deal with your hot pixels. There's a very easy way of doing it. Okay, and you'll find that, yeah, especially long exposures, high ISO, you're going to get hot pixels. That's just what happens, especially in these warmer climates. But this image here, like, I don't even need to do much to it. The color in that, I love the color in that. That's fine. Okay, if anything, we can do a little bit. But I want to work on these last two. Let's get these last two sorted. Yeah, I don't want to spend too long. I want to try and keep the streams to about an hour. I don't want to go for too long. So, I mean, yeah, as per usual, I've waffled on for a good 50 minutes already. So I'm just waiting for these two to denoise. And again, depending on how powerful your PC is, or laptop or MacBook, depends on how long these take. Yeah, I've got a few things running, so it is going to be a bit slower than normal. But yeah, look, it doesn't normally take that long. The denoise, it is very good. It is very good. So now they're both done. So now they're both denoised. And you'll see down here, it will actually say a DNG file, enhanced DNG. So that's how you know which one is your denoised. And it's going to be that one. So let's open both of those two into Photoshop. Because yeah, the denoise in Lightroom, it really is good. For high ISO images, it's really good. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I'm going to choose which one is my base image, and this one is definitely my base image. So what I'm going to do is bring the other one on top. Now, a cool little trick that I've only just learned, if we hold the shift button, so I've got my move tool, top left-hand corner is our move tool. And if I select this image here, but hold my shift button and then drag it on top of the other one, it actually places it directly on top. Okay, so then you don't have to move it again. Okay, so now I've got those two images stacked on top of each other. And what I want to do is I want to keep these two beams of light and bring them into this one. So this one, you can kind of see a beam of light there, but yeah, we're going to do a bit of an exposure blend. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to bring those two beams of light into this picture. Okay, so with these two on top, what I'm going to do is create a black layer mask, because a black will black out. Okay, so I'm going to black out this layer by holding the Alt key and selecting a layer mask. So now it's blacked out those two beams of light, and it's just showing our image that's underneath. So if I move the eyeball on and off, you'll see that we can't see that top layer. But I know those two beams of light are right there. So with a white brush, I'm going to grab a white brush and I'm just going to paint where those beams were. And now we've got them back in our image. Okay, so there's the original and there's those two beams of light. Okay, that's our exposure blend. So now I'm going to go layer, flatten image. Okay, so now we've got our two beams of light there. Now this is where, again, I don't use smart objects. Yeah, they have their time and place. I tend not to use them. I prefer just to go back to Lightroom and work from my original RAW file. Okay, and in this case, I'm working with my original denoised RAW file. Now, yes, I could bring that into Photoshop as a smart object. But yeah, smart, you've got to rasterize them and you do all this. Yeah, I'm not going to explain it. This way is easier. And that's what I'm all about, simple and effective. To me, this is a lot more simple than creating a smart object and then dealing with rasterizing and flattening and yeah, okay. So what I want to do is start to bring some color into this sky. Okay, so it's a little bit flat at the moment. So what we're going to do is, again, I'm just going to play with my white balance and get it roughly where I want it. So I do like this orange off to the left-hand side. And I like the purple on the other side. So what I'm going to do with this layer, I'm just going to warm it up a little bit. I'm going to get my purple so it's not too purple. Just find a nice balance in between. Then I'm going to go into my adjustment tools, grab a radial gradient, and we're just going to do a nice big gradient, but move it over to the side. And if I just sort of pull that in a little bit there, yeah, I think I can hear some rain. And now if I just cool it down a little bit, okay, don't want to go too far, but for the sake of YouTube, I will kind of push it because otherwise you're not going to see. Okay, so I'm just going to cool it down a little bit and add a little bit more purple to it. Okay, so you're probably not going to notice much on YouTube, and that's because I do subtle adjustments. I don't want to make it super blue and super purple and overdo it. Okay, I'm just going to just cool it down a little bit just to make that purple really stand out. And that's all I'm doing. The purple's there. It's there in the original image. I'm just going to make it stand out a little bit more. Okay, I'm not changing the color. I'm just enhancing it. Okay, and same with the yellow over this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another adjustment layer. And this time I'm going to grab a brush. I'm going to make a nice big brush. And I'm just going to warm it up. So I'm going to grab my temperature and take that up into the yellow. And just sort of paint some of that orange up there. Okay, now that's way too much. So I'm just going to dial that back a little bit to about there somewhere. Okay, now this side of the image, I want to start to add some of that dehaze in. That'll give it a little bit more of a dark and moody type look. Again, just a little bit. Okay, and a little bit of clarity as well. You know, just for the sake of YouTube, I will overcook it. Okay, so you got to remember when I do things on YouTube, this isn't what I normally do. It's just YouTube compression. If I do my subtle adjustments, you're not going to notice it. Okay, so with these sliders, I tend not to go over 20. 20 is kind of pushing it. Once you start to get up here, things just get very unnatural. Okay, so I'd like to just, you know, not over edit my image. Okay, but yeah, for the sake of this one, I'm going to over edit so you can see what's happening. Okay. So that's kind of looking better now, okay? And again, if we look at our before and after, just a little bit flat, and now we've just kind of added a bit more drama back into it, okay? Not over, well, we've overcooked it, but that's YouTube, okay? Now, another thing I don't like is this foreground. It's just too bright. I think I had the torch on, so I'm going to darken down that foreground because, again, our eye will normally lead to light, and my eye's drawing to this foreground. To me, that's just a bit too bright. So what I'm going to do is create another mask, grab my linear gradient, and I'm going to bring my linear gradient from the bottom up. And rather than turn down my exposure too much, I'm actually going to add contrast. Okay, and then that contrast is going to darken it, but still, you know, not make it look like it's just been darkened. Okay, so let's there's the before and there's the after. So as you can see, it just sort of it adds in like a nice darkness to it, takes the sting out of that light without, you know, without making it look darker, if that makes sense. So contrast, if I want to darken things just a little bit, I do use my contrast. Okay, so that's starting to look better now. Okay, so what I'm going to do now that I've done those edits, I'm going to go edit in Photoshop. I'm going to bring them into Photoshop. And again, we're going to do a little bit of not an exposure blend, but we're going to blend these two together. Okay, so I'm going to grab that, drop and drag it on top of my original. If I had held the shift button, it would have lined up. Okay, and again, what I'm going to do is create a layer mask because I want to keep those beams alight. So with a black brush, I'm going to black out the bits that I don't want, which is like in there. And just to make things look a bit more even, I'm just going to do that whole horizon. Okay, but then I don't want to lose that purple in the sky. Okay, so there's the before and there's our new adjustment that we've just done. Okay, so now I know that I've overdone it. So what I would do is just start to dial it back. And just by using my opacity, okay, because I've deliberately overcooked it for the sake of YouTube. If this was me working on the image, then I'd just bring that back, okay, rather than have the full overdone one. Just sort of bring it back to a point where it looks a bit more even, a bit more natural. Okay, so there's our starting. So we've just darkened the sky a little bit, darkened the foreground a little bit, added a tiny bit of purple into that sky, which you're probably not even going to notice, and a little bit of yellow. Okay, so we're kind of, rather than doing a global adjustment and adjusting everything, we're just selecting certain parts of our image now. Okay, so I'm going to layer and flatten that image. Now, hotspots, if we go in, okay, there's a hotspot right there. There's a hotspot right there, a hot pixel. Okay, there's quite a few hot pixels, and the more you zoom in, the more you'll see them. Okay, now, if you're just uploading to Facebook, Instagram, things like that, no one's going to see them. But if you want to print this image nice and large, you are going to see them. even, anything from A4 onwards, you're going to see those hot pixels, okay? They are going to stand out. So an easy way of getting rid of them, what I do is I press Control and J to make a copy. So we worked out that J stands for justify, but I call it duplicate, J for duplicate. That's how it's properly spelt with good English, J for duplicate. And then what we're going to do is if we go up to filter and we go down to noise, there's this one here called dust and scratches. So if we click on dust and scratches, and we just want to radius at 1 pixel. So if I find a pixel, let me see if I can find where one was. No, I'm not going to be able to find one. There was one up here somewhere. Anyway, 1 pixel, and what that will do, that will remove, I've got to find it now. There's one there, okay? So by just doing it by 1 pixel, if it's really bad, then maybe do 2 pixels. But yeah, I find 1 pixel is enough to get rid of those hot spots or those hot pixels. And as you can see, like it's still there, but compared to where it was, okay, so that one over there has kind of disappeared. This purple one, that probably needs a little bit more. So what we might do is just grab our Band-Aid tool or our healing brush tool and just give that a quick swipe. Okay, but yeah, that dust and scratches. Occasionally, yeah, if it's really noisy and you've got lots, you might go up to 2 pixels. But yeah, I usually find 1 pixel will get rid of most of your hot spots. Okay, so that's a good place to start. Now, another thing it does, if we have a look at this, we lose it because we've it's trying to find any sort of what it thinks is dust and scratches. So Photoshop is trying to find those dust and scratches, and it does it to the whole image. So as you can see, I don't know how well you're going to see it, but it's applying it to the tree as well. So I don't want it to apply to the tree because then it's taking away my sharpness. So all we're going to do is create a layer mask, okay, and then with a black brush, if we black out, okay, click on that layer mask, grab a black brush and just black out the bits where we know there's no hot pixels. Okay, so I know there's none on that tree. I want that tree to be nice and sharp. I don't want that dust and scratch adjustment layer to affect that part of my image. Okay, and again, this is where you can kind of get picky with it. So, anywhere where you think you want sharpness, you just black out that top layer to reveal your original layer underneath. But yeah, just be careful that you don't accidentally go over those pixels. Okay, so if we have a look now, we haven't affected that tree. We've just affected all our hot pixels in the sky. Okay, so that's how you get rid of hot pixels. Anyway, layer flatten image, we're into an hour. Now, another thing I want to do here is I want to add a little bit more color to it. And I'm going to show you a cheat. If we press Control and J again, J for duplicate, and go up to camera raw filter. It'll be fun. I reckon someone will get in comments and say you don't spell duplicate with the J. And let's see if we get someone. There's got to be someone out there that thinks I'm serious. Okay, what we're going to do is absolutely overcook this image. So bringing my highlights all the way down, bringing the whites all the way down, and overcooking the image. Okay, we're going to bump up our vibrance until it's getting like out of control. Okay, so somewhere like there. But because we've created a copy, so we've still got both of our layers. There's our original layer that we've kind of adjusted, and now we've got this over-edited one, over-processed. But if we grab that top one and just start to bring down the opacity a bit and get it where it's starting, like take it all the way down, you've got nothing. And then just slowly start to bring it up until you start to add in some of that color. So somewhere about there. Now we're starting to bring some green back into the tree. Okay, so that's kind of just a quick little hack that, I'll do that again just so you can have a look. So Control and J for duplicate, and then filter and camera raw filter. And that will take you back into your original camera raw filter. And then overcook it. So, normally I'd say don't do this, but it's a good way of giving you an idea of what you're dealing with. So take your whites all the way down, take your highlights all the way down, lift your blacks and shadows all the way. Okay, if you were to zoom in, there's going to be all sorts of noise and horrible things going on. But as long as you blend, and again, like upload that to Facebook, you know, people go, oh wow, that looks awesome. They print it out, it's going to look horrible. But then just start to blend it in with your original one, just so it adds a little bit. Okay. Another way of boosting color, again, Control and J. We're going to make a copy, and we've got all these blend types. So we've got our top layer selected. If we go to these blend types, so just above your layers, and a good one is soft light. Soft light adds some contrast, adds some color, but again, just bring it down, okay? Take it all the way down, and then just start to lift it until you get sort of roughly where you want it. Okay, so let's go somewhere like that. And now we're adding in color without bumping up saturation. Okay, and then finally, if we go to our level's going to show us a black point to the left and a white point to the right. So as I can see, there is no white point. So I'm going to grab my levels and bring it up to the edge of my white point. Okay, so now I've got some pure whites in the photo. Okay, my black point's fine. So there's the before and there's the after. And again, just by a simple levels adjustment, we're starting to add some pop to it. Okay, starting to boost those colors. Okay, there's lots more we can do. I'm going to finish it up there. I think that's enough for this one. So yeah, look, there's lots more we can do. I just want to sort of give you ideas on how you can take, let me just flatten that, how you can take an image and not so much edit the image, but just boost it, enhance that color, enhance all that detail in the image to bring it to life. Okay, so if we go back to Lightroom now, and we have a look at, there's the original, which one is it? That one. Okay, so let me reset that back to that. There's the raw file. Okay, and that's what we've done to it. Okay, so we've gone from a very flat, underexposed raw file with a horrible white balance, and we're bringing it to life. Okay, so that's, and you know, that's the way I see photography. To me, is it's bringing your photos to life. Okay, like, you know, yes, you can try and capture it in camera as best as you can, but just a couple of tweaks, like, you know, we know we've got all that color in there. Okay, just, you know, if our white balance was right for starters, like all that color's there. There's purples, there's yellows, it's all there. So all we're doing is we're enhancing what we've already got. Okay, and then, yeah, really bringing our image to life. Again, lots more things we can do. I just want to sort of give you ideas on what to do. But yeah, look, this night, God, it was good. I got some really nice shots. You know, the plan was to get lightning, even though I didn't get lightning. I'm really happy with, in fact, I've even printed one of these out for myself. I liked it that much. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to go out in the storm, be careful, but get out there, and you get some really nice colors during storms. It can be quite exciting being out there as well. So I think I'll wind it up there. So yeah, thank you to everyone who popped in. A bit of a last minute stream, but I had to get them out of the way. I've done 3 live streams in a row. Just wanted to get the processing over and done with, and then move on to the next one. So yeah, look, I'm really enjoying the live streams out in the field more than the editing ones. But, you know, I'll stick with the editing ones for now, because I know that there are a lot of people that kind of just pick up little bits and pieces along the way. So hopefully you picked up something from this. Again, I will eventually, when I get time, I will condense these into shorter videos, you know, enhancing color, removing hot pixels. I'll get onto them and do some shorter videos. So these ones are more just to show you my raw files. Okay, you get to see the raw files, which is pretty rare on YouTube these days. A lot of people, they like to show you the finished product. But yeah, I like to show you the raw files, because honestly, they are flat. Like, look at that. If that sort of, even that's been adjusted, let me reset that. A lot of people would take that shot and think, oh God, that's horrible. But look how much detail's in there. Okay, it's just a matter of pulling out what's there. Okay, and that's photography, developing your photos. Okay, go out, capture your photo, and then you develop it. Okay, so that's it for this stream. Thank you again to everyone who's in here. Thanks, Pam. Thanks, Leslie. Knots. Yeah, stay tuned. I will probably do another live stream during the week. The weather's looking good. We've got cloud. We've got possible rain. I'm not keen on the tides. We've got super high tides at the moment. They can be a bit tricky, the really big tides. But yeah, look, we'll find stuff. We'll get out there and we'll have some fun. And hopefully I will see you soon. Keep an eye out. I am planning to capture this comet. The comet is going to be around for at least another 5 days. So yeah, I will probably head down to Point Vernon. That's where I'll be. I'll try, if the sky is clear, I will be at Point Vernon. So come along and you'll probably see me down there somewhere. So again, it's one of those things, I'm just going to keep my eye on the sky. I'm not too fussed whether I get it or not. But yeah, it would be nice to try and get this comet while it's here. All right, so that's it for this one. Thanks again, and I shall see you all next time.